So I wanted to do another video now all about another idea that I've been having today, and this is an idea for a proof of the existence of God. And this is an idea that I don't think has been fully explored in theosophy, and I think that you may bear to learn something at least from listening to this idea and thinking about these sorts of ideas that I'm going to put forward in this video. And this is what I would call an aesthetic argument for the existence of God. So we have ontological, theological, and cosmological arguments for the existence of God. I believe in addition to that, there's something that we should consider an aesthetic argument for God's existence, and this differs from fine-tuning arguments, I think, because, well, when we look at the universe, it's objectively beautiful. I don't think there's much subjectivity in considering the universe as beauty. If you look at a starry night above you, this is, of course, a beautiful thing. The universe, of course, has ugly parts to it, ugly elements to it. But on the whole, I think we can all agree. And if we can all agree on something, that hence solidifies its objectivity, right? If we can all agree that something's beautiful, then it clearly is beautiful in an objective sense, and I believe that that applies to the universe. So breaking down this beauty, what do we find at the most fundamental level in nature? Do we find a universe that is bland, sterile, and uninspiring, and not vivid and gorgeous and beautiful, such as the universe that we have at the moment? We can very readily, I think, imagine that a universe might exist in which, for instance, there was only one type of fundamental particle in the universe. We can readily imagine, I think, a universe in which, say, it's just subsumed with light energy, or consumed with light energy, or pervaded by light energy, and it's just photons existing in the universe. It's just photons bouncing around, and it might just be a kind of a haze of whiteness if we could ever experience such a thing. And we don't see that. We see a universe that is ordered and constrained by different forces, and that produces light, for instance, produces energy, gives off radiation, and yeah, and even in the workings of the fundamental particles, even in their fundamental configurations, if you like, we find that structure begins to emerge within the universe. We don't find that, in a universe where there's just one or two different types of fundamental particles, you might find that some basic structure begins emerging. But in this universe, we have specific structures emerging which are conducive to, well, the existence of life and so on. And yeah, yet again, this veers into fine-tuning arguments, but I think it is somewhat distinct from fine-tuning arguments still. We find that atoms exist, for example, that the universe is predisposed to the manufacture of atoms, and that this, I think, if it were guided by no intelligence at all, if it were guided by something that is banal and dumb, mute, what's the word I'm looking for? Something that isn't idiosyncratic. Since the universe is also idiosyncratic, it's strange, it's weird that this exists, it's weird that we're in this experience, it's weird that I'm looking at this screen now while I'm recording this video, it's weird that I'm in such a bizarre situation to be a human being with hands, eyes, feet and everything, and it seems very, very odd that any such reality can play out at all. And the thing that allows that reality to play out in the first instance is, of course, the emergence of atomic structure. So what do we need to get to have atomic structure? Well, the first thing we need to have an atom is a proton. And a proton is a positively charged hadron. It's is a particle with positive charge, and it has an electron orbiting the proton, and that's how we make an atom. And what do we need? So we need to have this thing called an electron, which has a specific mass, charge, and spin. Then we need to have the proton, which is formed out of 3 quarks, and the quarks that's formed out of are 2 up quarks and a down quark. So we need to have ideas of up quarks and down quarks and of fractional charges and all these sorts of different things that seem added into the mix to produce, say, a single atom of hydrogen. And then in addition to the atom of hydrogen, we need a multitude, a huge plenum of different fundamental particles comprising different atoms, and thereby leading into the generative, creative processes that have ultimately led to the existence of life on this planet. And we might say that the existence of life on this planet is just kind of a byproduct of natural processes extending back billions of years. But we might also see that as the consequence of the plan, perhaps, of some divine entity, and not, by the way, not the god of any particular religion, not the gods of Hinduism, not the gods of Christianity, since I believe that all those religions are just facets of human artifice. I think that all the religions that have ever existed are just human creations, really, human constructs to try and explain the reality that we live in. And they do a good job as well. They've done quite a good job for the overwhelming majority of their adherents for thousands of years, and I don't think that's to be discounted either and discarded quite so much, but or derided especially. I don't think it's palatable really to subject that sort of thing to derision, since it's so impressive and it's produced such a huge array of impressive things, such as architecture and art and music and literature, poetry, philosophy as well, and all these great things that we rely upon and that we love. And those traditions, they're ultimately all built out of nature worship, and ultimately the existence of religion can be can be estimated as being some phenomena associated with our desire to worship nature. That's what we have in all of us, I think. A desire to worship nature, that we all consider the very existence of any scrap of material that we find around us to be evidence of the divine, and that we consider the universe itself to be a divine entity. And so we should, I think we should very much consider that the universe is special, is magical, is beautiful, incredible, and wonderful, and all these things, that these appendages that we might give it, these things that we might append to it, and so on. And yes, I think it's very natural to worship nature. I think it's very much within us. I think it's very much part of deep levels of our psyches, and we shouldn't move away from that desire so much, I think, in terms of becoming atheists and thinking that there's nothing after our lives, there's no existence after our physical death, and that there's nothing to be spiritually aware of, and that there's no such thing as the spirit, and all these sorts of heinous notions which I think crop up again and again in atheism and popular atheist thinking. And we needn't by the other token, we needn't fall headfirst into zealotry and being the worst kinds of religious people. We needn't do that also, but we may, I think, absolutely be the adherents of a religion. We may take a lot of personal time to think about God, society, politics, um, ourselves, our own experience, and consider our own experience in relation to spiritual teachings. I think that's absolutely legitimate and a perfectly great thing to do, and it's something that I do as well. So, I consider aspects of my life in relation to spiritual truth all the time and don't really think otherwise. But we find ourselves in a peculiar situation. We find ourselves in the peculiar situation of being alive. And being alive entails exposure to this wonderful place, this magnificent, beautiful creation. However, it's been created. We know now that for 13.8 billion years, the universe has been expanding. It's been expanding ever since this point in its history called the Big Bang, that we take to be the beginning of the universe. Recent discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope point to a different sort of possibility that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of the universe, that there's actually something before the Big Bang. Certain galaxies picked up by the James Webb Space Telescope are really too old to have formed after the Big Bang, and may have been in existence prior to the Big Bang, and the Big Bang may have been preceded by some sort of big collapse of universe in on itself, followed by re-expansion of the universe in what we refer to as the Big Bang, and creating space and so on and so forth, and not creating the particles that exist around us, but just transforming them into different configurations. Again, and we just find this on a very highly macroscopic scale in the universe, in a highly cosmological sense, or the true cosmology is something like the universe expands and contracts constantly, and that's what goes on. It goes on over the course of billions and billions and billions of years, and we may be expanding for some more billions of years until again it rolls out to some maximum point and then begins to collapse in on itself again. And that's what I roughly think may be happening in cosmological terms. But the questions of what gave rise to the universe to begin with, what was the very the precursor to everything, what was the ultimate act of creation of this grand cosmic structure that we see around us. The initial act of creation, I think, is just beyond our imaginings. It's beyond our science. I don't think we have any especially good means of testing for an initial creator, unless it's possible somehow to create particles of matter in a laboratory. If, for instance, we could create a single electron with our own techniques, we might be able to prove the existence of a creator deity. If we can't create a single electron in the laboratory, perhaps the universe is just eternal. It goes on and on forever, and it was not created by anything. Or perhaps, and this is the third way, because there's always a third way, isn't there? There's always a different way of considering things. Perhaps the universe wasn't created at all. And perhaps the universe is an intelligent entity in its own right. Since, I'm part of the universe, you're part of the universe, everybody you see around you on the street is part of the universe, each with their own experiences, memories, preconceptions, suppositions, ideas, each with their own flavour of a way of looking at things in nature, each with their own philosophy. And yeah, we can see ourselves as being, well, we are the universe itself. We're all part of this grand entity. We are the universe looking at itself. We are a microcosm. We are a limited element of nature experiencing itself, and that's a beautiful thing in its own right. And due to the infinitude of the thing, very possibly a notion which is also really out out of the realms of science and into philosophical speculation and into metaphysics, if we're truly dealing with something that lacks finitude in terms of its extent, in terms of its scope, then yeah, very possibly we're dealing with something that we'll never fully be able to understand. And we may say perhaps that a God created it, though we may also say in a different sense, in an alternate sense, that the universe itself is God, because the universe has power, it has knowledge, it takes up space, and it is loving. Love is a facet of the universe that exists within nature, and the universe contains all known forms of love. Known love exists within nature, and on a much kind of on the level of higher dimensions of nature, possibly. If such things exist, if string theory and so on really has pointed towards the truth in this, that it might contain higher dimensions of reality, and those dimensions might be populated with deities and so on, who are capable of creating these lower dimensions, such as the 3 and 4 dimensions upon which we exist, and those deities may be capable of creating the universe that we experience around us. Perhaps. But I think the atheistic conclusion, the conclusion that there's certainly no gods, and that there's definitely not an afterlife, and that all these things, it's very Calvinistic, is it not? It's very Protestant, I think, atheism. Contemporary atheism is very, smacks a bit of being rather austere, particularly. Rather austere and Calvinistic. And I don't have much time for it, frankly. I'd much rather call myself a pantheist, a pagan, since I consider myself a pagan in addition to being a pantheist, because I like witchcraft and things like this. And I think of myself in that sort of way, in those sorts of registers, and being a spiritual person very much, as opposed to a person without any kind of sense of wonder or inner life, and somebody who thinks that they know everything already, and that any kind of religious or spiritual person is wrong for being that way, and that you should just believe in nothingness instead of believing in and considering on a deep level the glorious universe that we have around us and its power and beauty. So that's what I wanted to highlight in this video. I think that there might be another argument for the existence of God. The universe is not tasteless, banal, boring, sterile, or cold and miserable. We are lavished with starlight. We are beholden to wonders on a day-to-day basis. We see clouds and blue sky swirling around us. We see stars in their gorgeous spins. We see, light being emitted from all different parts of the universe. We see glorious things through our telescopes. We see trees and birds and living things all about us, and it's a wonderful place to live. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, I think, in this 19-minute video. Sorry about that, but it did just take me quite a bit to explain all that, I think, and to articulate it fully, to take it to its apex of explication, if that's a term, if that's a word. Thank you for watching, everybody. I love you lots. Bye bye. See you soon.